What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about a guy that I think the Cincinnati Bengals should sign that could come in and really create a massive impact for this football team in 2025. He's a relatively well-known guy, borderline household name, and I think he could come and help this football team win right here, right now. We're going to be spending some time talking about him on today's show. But before we get into that, if you want the Cincinnati Bengals to make another move, show it by liking today's video for me right now. Going for over 400 likes here on today's show. So if you want Cincinnati to sign another player, probably on the defensive side of the football, right? Perhaps maybe even an offensive lineman as well, like today's video for me right now. All right, look, I think Cincinnati needs to sign another pass rusher, right? And as we sit here filming this at the end of the month of May, obviously the list of names out there aren't some tremendous names. I think there's still some solid names out there, but it's not like you got these all-world type players that are going to be available to you at this stage of the offseason. When you're looking at what Cincinnati has at that edge rusher spot, obviously the name that we have spent a ton of time talking about here on this show and will continue to spend a lot of time talking about is Trey Hendrickson. Even if you figure things out with Trey Hendrickson, whether that be he signs the deal that you offered or you cave and say, you know what, fine, we'll give you something that starts in that $30 million per year range, I still think you need another edge rusher, right, that can really go out there and help get quarterbacks on the ground. You took Shemar Stewart in the first round of this year's draft, right? Risky pick. Right? Risky pick, a guy that didn't have a ton of production in college and now is in the middle of a contract dispute with the Cincinnati Bengals organization. He's not even really an employee of the team yet because he hasn't signed his contract, which obviously this stage of the year is so important for a guy like Shemar Stewart that needs to get the reps under his belt so he can go out there and provide an impact, and he's not getting them here with this contract dispute. That worries me with Shemar Stewart. Also, Myles Murphy. Year 3 for Myles Murphy, your first-round pick a couple of years ago. I would love to think, a new coach is going to come in here and Jerry Montgomery, Al Golden. It's going to, we're going to see a new type of player in Myles Murphy. Would love to think that. I just don't know if that is the case here with Myles Murphy. We may have already seen kind of what he is as a football player, and obviously the past 2 years have not been good enough. Beyond those three dudes that we just mentioned, obviously Joseph Ossai was very vocal about the fact that, hey, I wasn't really too high on bringing Ossai back. Well, Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor, Al Golden, they thought about this a little bit differently. They want Ossai back with this football team. He is back. So when I look at this room as a whole, I say you need a new guy to come in and provide a little bit more depth and somebody that has been in this league for a long time and can go out there and say, hey, I can get quarterbacks on the ground, and I think there are a few guys that can perhaps do that for Cincinnati here at this stage of the offseason. But before we fully dive into who exactly that is, do you think the Bengals need to sign another edge? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section of today's show. Type Y for yes or N for no. All right, the name I am going to be talking about here is Za'Darius Smith. I think he could be the perfect fit for Cincinnati here when it comes to what they're looking for in 2025. Obviously, Za'Darius Smith is getting up there in age. Talk about some pros and cons of him a little bit later on in today's show. But this is a guy that's a rental piece, right? It was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, played in the AFC North for quite some time, then really burst onto the scene with their Green Bay Packers, was really an incredible part of their defense. A little bit of time in Cleveland, and then finished out last year with the Detroit Lions, where he really was able to come in and replace the injured Aiden Hutchinson, really help provide an impact for that football team. So this is a guy that I still think has a lot to offer at that edge rusher spot, a guy that can get quarterbacks on the ground, right? Something Cincinnati has really struggled with outside, of course, Trey Hendrickson here going forward. And I think Za'Darius Smith could be that guy for Cincinnati here in 2025. Obviously, there's a reason he's still available. We'll get into some pros and cons here in a second. But Za'Darius Smith, when I look at really guys, there's some good football players, right? We've talked about Justin Simmons as a potential guy at that safety spot. There's some good football players that are still available. But from a fit perspective, I think Za'Darius Smith is the best fit out of all the available free agents currently right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. Pros and cons of what that signing would look like here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals Draft Hats are out now. They are still available. You can go get them chatsports.com/Bengals Draft Hats. Father's Day, obviously right around the corner, could perhaps be a great gift for your father if you want him to get some Cincinnati Bengals swag, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. They got some really cool designs up there, so make sure you go check them out. We will put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. One more time for you guys, it's chatsports.com/Bengals Draft Hats. All right, some pros of signing Za'Darius Smith here. He's an instant impact guy, right? This is a guy that still had 9 sacks last season, cross between both Cleveland and Detroit, right? This is a guy that can finish, right? Not just a guy that's going to get pressures on the quarterback. No, he's going to get them on the ground and create negative plays, something that the Cincinnati Bengals defense really struggled with last year and really for several years, all the way really kind of dating back to the year they went on that Super Bowl run in 2021. Ever since after that, that defense really hasn't been able to create a ton of negative plays. He can come in, he can do that, he can still play at that type of level. Also, he's a veteran presence, right? You hear people within the Lions organization really rave about what he was able to do from a leadership perspective for that defense, right? In terms of what they're doing for Dan Campbell over there in Detroit. The Bengals, in my opinion, when you look at the defensive side of the football, I see a lot of youth, right? I see some inexperience. I see a new coaching staff on the defensive side of the football. You really could use a guy that could come in and help be a stabilizer for that unit, and I think Za'Darius Smith could do that, especially with, the things up in the air with Trey Hendrickson. What's he looking like from a leadership perspective here at this point? I think Za'Darius Smith could come in and help this football team, and obviously Cincinnati should be a place where he would kind of want to go, considering that at this stage of his career, he's trying to chase a Super Bowl, and I don't really think there's too many better spots to do that than here in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. And then kind of going back to what I said at the very beginning of the show, there is a very clear need here, in my opinion, regardless of what happens with Trey Hendrickson, right? You're taking a guy that's such a risky pick there in Shemar Stewart. I don't think, especially if Trey Hendrickson isn't with this football team, which I think we all have to sit there and say that could be a possibility, you want to roll out Shemar Stewart, Myles Murphy, and Joseph Osai as your ways of getting the quarterback on the ground. I don't see many sacks between those guys whatsoever if that's what you're rolling out. I know that if Za'Darius Smith is out there healthy on the football field, he's going to create some sacks. He's done it throughout the entirety of his career. He showed it last year, and I don't think he's going to age too quickly to the point where he wouldn't be able to do some good stuff for your football team this year in 2025. Your turn here in the comment section of today's show. Would you sign Za'Darius Smith? Let me know what you guys think. Type S for sign or P for pass. I just mentioned it there with the age. Let's talk some cons here on today's show. He does turn 33 years of age in September. Obviously, for a professional football player, that is getting up there in age. At some point, is he going to fall off a cliff? Maybe. At some point, is he not going to be able to stay healthy? That could be the case as well. But I think for a rental type of deal here, this would be a one-year deal. It's not going to be anything more than that. I think it would be worth the risk. Now, there is some potential contract concern as well when you're talking about Za'Darius Smith. That was the reason why Detroit was saying, yeah, that's why we had to cut him, because we couldn't afford him. Now, what is his price going to look like? I would be shocked if he signed a $10 million deal. I don't think that's something that he would do. I don't think he is worth quite that much. I could be wrong. Maybe that's the fact or the reason why he is still available here at this point right now and hasn't signed with a football team, because he's looking to be in that $10 million range. I would guess it's probably more along the lines of what Joseph Osai signed for Cincinnati, right, in that $7-ish million range. Obviously, Cincinnati has helped create some cap room with the restructuring the deals of Geno Stone and Zach Moss. An inevitable cut of Jermaine Pratt's going to open up some more space as well. They have some room here as far as the salary cap goes to bring in a guy like Za'Darius Smith. Will they choose to do it? We will see. But I think from a financial perspective, they can make this work. And also, when you have to understand that your window here with this core, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Hopefully Burrow's here for a really long time. But as far as the two receivers go, that's about 4 or 5 years here. You got to be really aggressive over these next 4 or 5 years, because that is going to be your best chance to win a Super Bowl. I think going out there and paying a veteran edge rusher a rental type of deal where you're paying him maybe close to $10 million, if that's what he's looking for, is something that would be a good decision for your football team. Lastly here for the con side, he's not an elite run defender, right? Obviously Cincinnati as a defense struggled all throughout their defense, right, in last year. And hopefully I think you got some guys there on the interior, bringing in T.J. Slayton, right, obviously a different position there at defensive tackle. You got, second-year guys coming back, Chris Jenkins Jr., McKinley Jackson. Those guys hopefully can shore up the run game. but he's not going to offer you a ton from that run perspective. And again, neither does Trey Hendrickson, right? I think that's why, the Bengals were so keen on taking a guy like Shemar Stewart. He can help set the edge from a run defense perspective. I'm not quite sure that Za'Darius Smith offers you much at all in the run game, and that certainly could turn the Bengals off a little bit, considering that he would be looking for a contract that certainly is sizable. But overall, I don't think there are a ton of cons to signing Za'Darius Smith, and if I were Duke Tobin and the Cincinnati Bengals right now, I would be calling trying to get this guy on my football team.